Chapter 3, Lev. The party is big, the party's expensive, the party's been planned for years. There are at least 200 people in the country club's grand ballroom. Lev got to pick the band, he got to choose the food, he even got to select the color of the linens, red and white for the Cincinnati Reds. And his name, Levi Jedediah Calder, is stamped in gold on the silk napkins for people to take home as a remembrance. The party's all for him, it's all about him, and he's determined to have the best time of his life. The adults at the party are relatives, friends of the family, his parents' business associates, but at least 80 of the guests are Lev's friends. They're kids from school, from church, from the various sports teams he's been on. Some of his friends had felt funny about coming, of course. "I don't know, Lev," they had said. "It's kind of weird. I mean, what kind of present am I supposed to bring?" "You don't have to bring anything," Lev had told them. "There are no presents at a tithing party. Just come and have a good time. I know I will." And he does. He asks every girl he invited to dance, and not a single one turns him down. He even has people lift him up in a chair and dance with him around the room because he had seen them do that at a Jewish friend's bar mitzvah. True, this is a very different kind of party, but it's also a celebration of him turning 13, so he deserves to get lifted up in a chair too, doesn't he? Lev finds that the dinner is served far too soon. He looks at his watch to see that 2 hours have already gone by. How could it have gone so quickly? Soon, people grab the microphone and, holding up glasses of champagne, they start making toasts to Lev. His parents give a toast, his grandmother gives a toast, an uncle he doesn't even know gives a toast. "To Lev, it's been a joy to watch you grow into the fine young man you are, and I know in my heart that you'll do great things for everyone you touch in this world." It feels wonderful and weird for so many people to say so many kind things about him. It's all too much, but in some strange way, it's not enough. There's got to be more. More food, more dancing, more time. They already bring out the birthday cake. Everyone knows the party ends once the cake is served. Why are they bringing out the cake? Can it really be 3 hours into the party? Then comes one more toast. It's the toast that almost ruins the evening. Of Lev's many brothers and sisters, Marcus has been the quietest all evening. It's unlike him. Lev should have known something was going to happen. Lev at 13 is the youngest of 10. Marcus at 28 is the oldest. He flew halfway across the country to be here at Lev's tithing party, and yet he's barely danced, or spoken, or been a part of any of the festivities. He's also drunk. Lev has never seen Marcus drunk. It happens after the formal toasts are given, when Lev's cake's being cut and distributed. It doesn't start as a toast. It starts as just a moment between brothers. "Congrats, little bro," Marcus says, giving him a powerful hug. Lev can smell the alcohol on Marcus's breath. "Today you're a man, sort of." Their father, sitting at the head table just a few feet away, lets out a nervous chuckle. "Thanks, sort of," Lev responds. He glances at his parents. His father waits to see what's coming next. His mother's pinched expression makes Lev feel tense. Marcus stares at Lev with a smile that doesn't hold any of the emotion a smile usually comes with. "What do you think of this?" he asks Lev. "It's great." "Of course it is. All these people here for you. It's amazing. Amazing night." "Yeah," says Lev. He's not sure where this is going, but he knows it's going somewhere. "I'm having the time of my life." "Damn right the time of your life. Got to wrap up all those life events, all those parties into one. Birthdays, wedding, funeral." Then he turns to their father. "Very efficient, right, Dad?" "That's enough," their father says quietly, but it only makes Marcus get louder. "What? I'm not allowed to talk about it?" "Oh, that's right. This is a celebration. I almost forgot." Lev wants Marcus to stop, but at the same time he doesn't. Mom stands up and says in a voice more forceful than Dad's, "Marcus, sit down. You're embarrassing yourself." By now, everyone in the banquet hall has stopped whatever they were doing and turned into the unfolding family drama. Marcus, seeing he has the room's attention, picks up someone's half-empty glass of champagne and holds it high. "Here's to my brother, Lev," Marcus says, "and to our parents, who have always done the right thing, the appropriate thing, who have always given generously to charity, who have always given 10% of everything to our church. Hey, Mom, we're lucky you had 10 kids instead of 5. Otherwise, we'd end up having to cut Lev off at the waist." Gasp from all those assembled people shaking their heads. Such disappointing behavior from an eldest son. Now Dad comes up and grabs Marcus's arm tightly. "You're done," Dad says. "Sit down." Marcus shakes Dad's arm off. "Oh, I'll do better than sit down." Now there's tears in Marcus's eyes as he turns to Lev. "I love you, bro, and I know this is your special day, but I can't be a part of this. He hurls the champagne glass against the wall where it shatters, spraying fragments of crystal all over the buffet table. Then he turns and storms out with such steady confidence in his stride that Lev realizes he's not drunk at all. Lev's father signals the band and they kick into a dance number even before Marcus is gone from the huge room. People begin to fill the void of the dance floor, doing their best to make the awkward moment go away. "I'm sorry about that, Lev," his father tells him. Why don't you go dance?" But Lev finds he doesn't want to dance anymore. The desire he had to be the center of attention, along with his brother, is gone. I'd like to talk to Pastor Dan, if that's all right." Of course it is. Pastor Dan has been a family friend since before Lev was born, and he's always been much easier to talk to than his parents about any subject that requires patience and wisdom. The band hall is too loud and too crowded, so they go outside to the patio overlooking the country club's golf course. "Are you getting scared?" Pastor Dan asked. He's always been able to figure out what's on Lev's mind. Lev nods. "I thought I was ready. I thought I was prepared. It's natural. Don't worry about it." But it doesn't seem to ease the disappointment Lev feels in himself. He's had his entire life to prepare for this. It should have been enough. He knew he was a tithe from the time he was little. "You're special," his parents had always told him. "Your life will be to serve God and mankind." He doesn't remember how old he was when he found out exactly what that meant for him. Have kids in school been giving you a hard time? No more than usual, Lev tells him. It's true. All his life he's had to deal with kids who resented him because grown-ups treated him as if he were special. There were kids who were kind and kids who were cruel. That's life. It did bother him, though, when kids called him things like dirty Unwind, as if he was like those other kids whose parents signed the Unwind order to get rid of them. This couldn't be further from the truth for Lev. He is his family's pride and joy. Straight A's in school, MVP in Little League. Just because he's to be unwound does not mean he's an unwind. There are, of course, a few other ties at his school, but they're all from different religions, so Lev never really felt a sense of camaraderie with them. The huge turnout at tonight's party testifies to how many friends Lev has, but they're not like him. Their lives will be lived in an undivided state. Their bodies and their futures are their own. Lev's always felt closer to God than to his friends or even his family. He often wonders if being chosen always leaves a person so isolated. Or is there something wrong with him? "I've been having a lot of wrong thoughts," Lev tells Pastor Dan. "There are no wrong thoughts, only thoughts that need to be worked through and overcome." "Well, I've just been feeling jealous of my brothers and sisters. I keep thinking of how the baseball team's going to miss me. I know it's an honor and a blessing to be a tithe, but I can't stop wondering why it has to be me." Pastor Dan, who's always been so good at looking people in the eye, now looks away. "It was decided before you were born. It's not anything you did or didn't do." "The thing is, I know tons of people with big families." Pastor Dan nodded. "Yes, it's very common these days. But lots of those people don't tithe at all, even families in our church, and nobody blames them. There are also people who tithe their first, second, or third child. Every family must make the decision for itself. Your parents waited a long time before making the decision to have you." Lev reluctantly nods, knowing it's true. He was a true tithe, with 5 natural siblings, plus 1 adopted, plus 3 that arrived by stork. Lev is exactly 1/10. His parents had always told him that made him all the more special. "I'll tell you something, Lev," Pastor Dan says, finally meeting his eye. Like Marcus, his eyes are moist just one step short of tears. "I've watched all your brothers and sisters grow, and although I don't like playing favorites, I think you're the finest of them all in so many ways. I wouldn't even know where to start. That's what God asked for, you know, not first fruits, but best fruits." "Thank you, sir." Pastor Dan always has a way to make Lev feel better. "I'm ready for this." And saying it makes him realize that, in spite of his fears and misgivings, he truly is ready. This is everything he's lived for. Even so, his tithing party ends much too soon. In the morning, the Calders have to eat breakfast in the dining room table with all the leaves in the table. All of Lev's brothers and sisters are there. Only a few of them still live at home, so today they've all come over for breakfast. All of them, that is, except Marcus. Yet, for such a large family, it's unusually quiet, and the clatter of silverware on china makes the lack of conversation even more conspicuous. Lev, dressed in his silk tithing whites, eats carefully so not to leave any stains on his clothes. After breakfast, the goodbyes are long and full of hugs and kisses. It's the worst part. Lev wishes they would all just let him go and let the goodbyes be over with. Pastor Dan arrives. He's come at Lev's request. And once he's there, the goodbyes move more quickly. Nobody wants to waste the pastor's valuable time. Lev is the first one in his dad's Cadillac, and although he tries not to look back as his father starts the car and drives away, he can't help it. He watches as his home disappears behind them. I will never see that home again, he thinks, and he pushes the thought out of his mind. It's unproductive, unhelpful, selfish. He looks at Pastor Dan, who sits beside him in the back seat watching him. The pastor smiles. It's all right, Lev, he says. Just hearing it makes it so. How far is the harvest camp? Lev asks to whoever cares to answer. It's about an hour from here, his mom says. And will they do it right away? His parents look to each other. I'm sure there'll be an orientation, says his father. That short answer makes it clear to Lev that they don't know any more than he does. As they pull onto the interstate, Lev rolls down the window to feel the wind on his face, and he closes his eyes to prepare himself. This is what I was born for. It's what I've lived my life for. I am chosen. I am blessed. And I'm happy. Suddenly, his father slams on the brakes. With his eyes closed, Lev doesn't see the reason for their unexpected stop. He just feels the sharp deceleration of the Cadillac and the pull of the seatbelt on his shoulder. He opens his eyes to see that they've stopped on the interstate. Police lights flash, and is that a gunshot he just heard? What's going on? Then, just outside his window is another kid, a few years older than him. He looks scared. He looks dangerous. Lev reaches over to quickly pull up his window, but before he can, the kid reaches in, pulls up the lock to the door, and tugs the door open. Lev is frozen. He doesn't know what to do. Mom, Dad, he calls. The boy with murder in his eyes tugs on Lev's white silk shirt, trying to pull him out of the car, but the seatbelt holds him tight. What are you doing? Leave me alone. Lev's mom screams for his father to do something, but he's fumbling with his own seatbelt. The maniac reaches over and in one swift motion unclips Lev's seatbelt. Pastor Dan grabs the intruder, who responds with a quick, powerful punch, a jab right in Pastor Dan's jaw. The shock of seeing such violence distracts Lev at a crucial moment. The maniac tugs on him again, and this time Lev falls out of the car, hitting his head on the pavement. When he looks up, he sees his father finally getting out of the car, but the crazy kid swings the door against him, sending him flying. Dad! His father lands in the path of an oncoming car. The car swerves, and thank God it misses him, but it cuts off another car, hitting it, and that car spins out of control, and the sound of crashes fills the air. Lev is pulled to his feet again by the kid, who grabs Lev's arm and drags him off. Lev is small for his age. This kid's a couple of years older and much bigger. Lev can't break free. Stop, yells Lev. You can have what you want. Take my wallet, he says, even though he has no wallet. Take the car. Just don't hurt anyone. The kid considers the car, but only for an instant. Bullets now fly past them. On the southbound roadway are policemen who have finally stopped traffic on their side of the interstate, and they've made it to the median dividing the north and southbound lanes. The closest officer fires again. A trank bullet hits the Cadillac and splatters. The crazy kid now puts Lev in a chokehold, holding Lev between himself and the officers. Lev realizes that he doesn't want a car or money. He wants a hostage. Stop struggling, I've got a gun. And Lev feels the kid poke him in the side. Lev knows it's not a gun. He knows it's just a kid's finger. But this is a clearly unstable individual, and he doesn't want to set him off. I'm worthless as a human shield, Lev says, trying to reason with him. Those are trank bullets they're shooting, which means the cops don't care if they hit me. They'll just knock me out. Better you than me. Bullets fly past them as they wind around swerving traffic. Please, you don't understand. You can't take me now. I'm being tithed. It's my harvest. You'll ruin everything. And finally, a hint of humanity crumbs across the maniac's eyes. You're an Unwind? There are a million more things to be furious about, but Lev finds himself incensed by what he's just been called. I'm a tithe. A blaring horn, and Lev turns to see a bus bearing down on them. Before either of them has a chance to scream, the bus careens off the road to avoid them and smashes head-on against the fat trunk of a huge oak, stopping the bus cold. There's blood all over the smashed windshield. It's the bus driver's blood, and he hangs halfway through, and he's not moving. Oh, crap, says the maniac, a creepy whine in his voice. A girl has just stepped off the bus. The crazy kid looks at her and Lev and realizes now why he's distracted is the best time he's going to have a chance to get away. The kid is an animal. The only way to deal with him is for Lev to become an animal himself. So Lev grabs the arm that's locked around his neck and sinks his teeth in with full force of his jaws until he tastes blood. The kid screams, "Let's go," and Lev bolts away, racing toward his father's car. As he nears it, the back door opens. It's Pastor Dan opening the door to receive him, yet the expression on the man's face is anything but happy. With his face already swelling from the kid's crazy, brutal punch, Pastor Dan says, with a hiss and strange warble to his voice, "Run, Lev." Lev wasn't expecting this. What? Run. Run as fast and as far as you can. Run. Lev stands there, impotent, unable to move, unable to process this. Why is Pastor Dan telling him to run? Then comes a sudden pain in his shoulder, and everything starts spinning round and down a drain into darkness.
Oh, you got trained.
Chapter 4, Connor. The pain in Connor's arm is unbearable. That little monster actually bit him, practically took a chunk out of his forearm. Another car slams the brakes to avoid hitting him and gets rear-ended. The trig bullets have stopped flying, but he knows that's temporary. The accidents have gotten the juvie cops momentarily distracted, but they won't stay that way for long. Just then he makes eye contact with the girl who got off the bus. He thinks she's going to go stumbling toward all the people who are running from their cars to help, but instead, she turns and runs into the woods. Has the whole world gone insane? Still holding his stinging, bleeding arm, he turns to run into the woods as well, but stops. He turns back to see the kid in white just reaching his car. Connor doesn't know where the juvie cops are. They're lurking, no doubt, somewhere in the tangle of vehicles. That's when Connor makes a split-second decision. He knows it's a stupid decision, but he can't help himself. All he knows is that he's caused death today. The bus drivers, maybe more. Even if it risks everything, he's got to balance it out. Somehow, he's got to do something decent, something good to make up for the awful consequences of his kicking AWOL. And so, battling his own instinct for self-preservation, he races toward the kid in white who was so happily going to his own unwinding. It's as Connor gets close that he sees a cop 20 yards away raise his weapon and fire. He shouldn't have risked this. He should have gotten away when he could. Connor waits for the telltale sting of the trig bullet, but it never comes. Because the moment the bullet's fired, the boy in white takes a step back and he's hit in the shoulder. 2 seconds, his knees buckle and the kid hits the ground, out cold, unwittingly taking a bullet meant for Connor. Connor wastes no time. He picks the kid up off the ground, flips him over his shoulder. Trink bullets fly, but no others connect. In a few seconds, Connor's past the bus, where a gaggle of shell-shocked teens are getting off. He pushes past them into the woods. The woods are dense, not just with trees, but with tall shrubs and vines. Yet there's already a path of broken branches and parted shrubs made by the girl who ran from the bus. They might as well be arrows pointing the police in their direction. He sees the girl up ahead and calls out to her, "Stop." She turns, but only for an instant, and then renews her battle with the dense growth all around her. Connor gently puts down the boy in white and hurries for her, forward, catching up with her. He grabs her arm gently yet firmly enough that she can't pull away. "Whatever you're running from, you won't get away unless we work together," he tells her. He glances behind him to make sure no juvie cops are in sight yet. They aren't. "Please, we don't have much time." The girl stops fighting the bushes and looks at him. "What do you have in mind?" Chapter 5, Cop. Officer J.T. Nelson has spent 12 years working juvenile. He knows AWOL unwinds will not give up as long as there's an ounce of consciousness left in them. They're high on adrenaline and often high on illegal substances as well. Nicotine, caffeine, or worse. He wishes his bullets were the real thing. He wishes he could truly take these wastes of life out rather than just taking them down. Maybe then they wouldn't be so quick to run, and if they did, well, no great loss. The officer follows the path made to the woods by the AWOL unwind until he comes to a lump on the ground. It's the hostage just dumped in the path, his white clothes smudged green from the foliage and brown from the muddy earth. "Good," thinks the officer. "It's a good thing this boy took that bullet after all. Being unconscious probably saved that kid's life. No telling where the unwind would have taken him or what he would have done to him." "Help me," says a voice just ahead of him. It's a voice of a girl. The officer wasn't expecting this. "Help me, please, I'm hurt." Deeper in the woods, a girl sits up against a tree, holding her arm, grimacing in pain. He doesn't have time for this, but protect and serve is more than just a motto to him. He sometimes wishes he didn't have such moral integrity. He goes over to the girl. "What are you doing here?" "I was on the bus, and I got off and ran away because I was scared it would explode. I think my arm's broken." He looks at the girl's arm. It's not even bruised. This should have been his first clue. But his mind's already too far ahead of him to catch it. "Stay here. I'll be right back." He turns ready to pick up his pursuit when something drops on him from above. Not something, someone. The AWOL unwind. The officer's knocked to the ground, and suddenly there are 2 figures attacking him, the unwind and the girl. They're in this together. How could he have been so stupid? He reaches for his trank pistol, but it's not there. Instead, he feels its muzzle against his left thigh, and he sees triumph in the Unwind's dark, vicious eyes. Nighty-night, the Unwind says. A sharp pain in the officer's leg, and the world goes away. Chapter 6, Lev. Lev wakes up to a dull ache in his shoulder. He thinks maybe he slept funny, but he quickly realizes the ache is from an injury. His left shoulder was the entry point of a tranq bullet, though he doesn't realize that just yet. All the things that had happened to him 12 hours before are like faint clouds in his mind that have lost their shape. All he knows for sure is that he was on his way to his tithing. He was kidnapped by a murderous teenager. And for some strange reason, the image of Pastor Dan keeps coming back to him. Pastor Dan was telling him to run. He's sure that must be a false memory because he can't believe Pastor Dan would do such a thing. Everything's blurry as Lev opens his eyes. He doesn't know where he is, only that it's night and he's not where he should be. The insane teen who took him sits across a small fire. There's a girl there too. That's when he realizes he'd been hit by a tranq bullet. His head hurts. He feels like he might puke and his brain is still only at half power. He tries to get up but can't. At first he thinks it's because of the tranquilizers, but then he realizes he's tied to a tree by thick vines. He tries to speak, but his voice comes out as a little groan and a lot of drool. The boy and girl look at him. He's sure they're going to kill him now. They've kept him alive just so he'd be awake when they killed him. Maniacs are like that. Look who's back from Trankville, says the boy with wild eyes. Only his eyes aren't wild now, just his hair. It's all sticking up like he slept on it. Although Lev's tongue feels like rubber, he manages to get out a single word. Where? Not sure, says the boy. Then the girl adds, but at least you're safe. Safe, thinks Lev. What could possibly be safe about this? Hostage, Lev gets out. The boy looks to the girl and then back at Lev. Kind of, I guess. These two talk in an easy tone of voice like they're all friends. They're trying to lull me into a false sense of security, thinks Lev. They're trying to get me on their side so I'll take part in whatever criminal activities they have planned. There's an expression for that, isn't there, when a hostage joins the kidnapper's cause? The something syndrome? The crazy kid looks to a pile of berries and nuts obviously forged from the woods. You hungry? Lev nods, but the act of nodding makes his head spin so much he realizes that no matter how hungry he is, he'd better not eat, because it just come right back up. No, he says. You sound confused, says the girl. Don't worry, it's just the tranks. They should wear off pretty soon. Stockholm Syndrome, that's it. Well, Lev won't be won over by this pair of kidnappers. He'll never be on their side. Pastor Dan told me to run. What had he meant? Did he mean run from the kidnappers? Maybe, but he seemed to be saying something entirely different. Lev closes his eyes and chases the thought away. My parents will look for me, Lev says, his mouth finally able to put together whole sentences. The kids don't answer because they probably know it's true. How much is the ransom, Lev asks. Ransom? There's no ransom, says the crazy kid. I took you to save you, idiot. To save me? Lev just stares at him in disbelief. But my tithing. The crazy kid looks at him and shakes his head. I've never seen a kid in such a hurry to be unwound. It's no use trying to explain to this godless pair what tithing's about, how giving of oneself is the ultimate blessing. They'd never understand or care. Save him? They haven't saved him, they've damned him. Then Lev realizes something. He realizes that he can use this entire situation to his advantage. My name's Lev, he says, trying to play it as cool as he can. Pleased to meet you, Lev, says the girl. I'm Risa, and this is Connor. Connor throws her a dirty look, making it clear that she shouldn't have given him their real names. It's not a good idea for hostage takers, but then most criminals are stupid like that. Didn't mean for you to take that tranq bullet, Connor tells him. The cop was a bad shot. Not your fault, says Lev, even though every bit of it was Connor's fault. Lev thinks about what happened and says, I would have never run from my own tithing. That much Lev knows is true. Good thing I was around then, says Connor. Yeah, says Risa. If it weren't for Connor running across that highway, I'd probably be unwound by now, too. There's a moment of silence. Then Lev, fighting back his anger and revulsion, says, Thank you. Thank you for saving me. Don't mention it, says Connor. Good. Let them think he's grateful. Let them think they're earning his trust. And once they're lulled into their own false sense of security, he'll make sure they both get exactly what they deserve. Chapter 7, Connor. Connor should have kept that juvie cop's gun, but he wasn't thinking. He was so freaked out having tranked a cop with his own weapon, he just dropped it and ran. Just like he dropped his backpack on the interstate so he could carry Lev. His wallet and all his money was in that pack, and now he has nothing but pocket lint. It's late now, or more accurately early, almost dawn. He and Risa kept moving through the woods all day as best they could, with Connor having to carry an unconscious Tithe. Once night fell and Risa had taken turns keeping watch while the others slept. Connor knows that Lev can't be trusted. That's why Connor tied him to a tree. But there's no reason to trust this girl who came running off the bus either. It's only their common goal of staying alive that binds them. The moon's left the sky now, and there's a faint glow promising a quick arrival of dawn. By now their faces would be everywhere. Have you seen these teens? Do not approach. Considered extremely dangerous. Call police immediately. Funny how Connor had wasted so much time in school trying to convince people he was dangerous, but when it came down to it, he was never sure if he was that dangerous at all. A danger to himself, maybe. All the while, Lev watches him. At first, the boy's eyes had been lazy and his head lolling to one side, but now those eyes are sharp. Even in the dimness of the dying fire, Connor can see them. Chilly blue, calculating. This kid's an odd bird. Connor's not quite sure what's going on planet Lev, and he's not quite sure he wants to know. That bite's going to get infected if you don't take care of it, Lev says. Connor looks to the spot on his arm where Lev bit him, still puffy and red. He had tuned out the pain until Lev reminded him. I'll deal with it. Lev continues to study him. Why are you being unwound? Connor doesn't like that question for a whole lot of reasons. You mean why was I being unwound? Because as you can see, I'm not being unwound anymore. They will if they catch you. Connor feels like punching that smug look off this kid's face, but he restrains himself. He didn't rescue the kid just to beat him up. So, what's it like, Connor asked, knowing all your life you're going to be sacrificed? He meant it as a jab, but Lev takes the question seriously. It's better than going through life without knowing your purpose. Connor's not sure if that was intentionally meant to make him squirm, as if his life had no purpose, but it makes him feel like he's the one tied to a tree, not Lev. I guess it could be worse, says Connor. We could have all ended up like Humphrey Dunphy. Lev seems surprised by the mention of the name. You know that story? I thought only kids in my neighborhood told it. Nah, says Connor, kids tell it everywhere. It's made up, says Risa, having just woke up. Maybe, says Connor. There was this one time, a friend and I tried to find out about it while surfing on the school's computers. We hit this one website that talked about it and how his parents went all psycho. Then the computer crashed. Turns out we were hit by a virus that wiped out the entire district server. Coincidence? I don't think so. Lev's taken in, but Risa, fairly disgusted, says, well, I'll never end up like Humphrey Dunphy because you have to have parents for them to go all psycho, and I don't. She stands up. Connor looks away from the dying fire to see that dawn has arrived. If we're going to keep from being caught, I think we should change direction again, Risa says. We should also think about disguising ourselves. Like how, asked Connor. I don't know, change our clothes first, haircuts maybe. They'll be looking for two boys and a girl. Maybe I can disguise myself as a boy. Connor takes a good look at her and smiles. Risa's pretty. Not in the way Ariana was pretty, in a better way. Ariana's prettiness was all about makeup and pigment injections and stuff. Risa has a natural kind of beauty. Without thinking, Connor reaches out to touch her hair and gently says, I don't think you could ever pass for a guy. Suddenly, he finds his hand tugged up behind him. His whole body spins around, and she painfully wrenches his arm up the small of his back. It hurts so much he can't even say ouch. All he can say is, eh. Touch me again, and your arm gets ripped off, Risa tells him. Got that? Yeah, fine, hands off, got it. Over at the oak tree, Lev laughs, apparently pleased to see Connor in pain. She lets go of him, but his shoulder still throbs. You didn't have to do that, Connor says, trying not to show how much it still hurts. It's not like I was going to hurt you or anything. Yeah, well, now you won't for sure, says Risa, maybe sounding a bit guilty for being so harsh. Don't forget, I lived in a state home. Connor nods. He knows all about stay-ho kids. They have to learn to take care of themselves real young or their lives are not very pleasant. He should have realized she was a touch-me-not. Excuse me, says Lev, but we can't go anywhere if I'm tied to a tree. Still, Connor doesn't like that judgmental look in Lev's eyes. How do we know you won't run? You don't. But until you untie me, I'm a hostage, Lev says. Once I'm free, I'm a fugitive like you. Tied up, I'm the enemy. Cut loose, I'm a friend. If you don't run, says Connor. Risa impatiently begins untying the vines. Unless we want to leave him here, we'll have to take that chance. Connor kneels to help, and in a few moments, Lev is free. He stands and stretches, rubbing his shoulder where the tranq bullet had hit him. Lev's eyes are still blue ice and hard for Connor to read, but he's not running. Maybe, thinks Connor, he's over the duty of being tithed. Maybe he's finally starting to see the sense of staying alive. Chapter 8, Risa. Risa finds herself unsettled by the food wrappers and broken bits of plastic as they start coming across the woods because the first sign of civilization is always trash. Civilization means people who could recognize them if their faces have been smeared on the news net. Risa knows that staying completely clear of human contact's an impossibility. She has no illusion about their chances or their ability to remain unseen. As much as they need to remain anonymous, they cannot get by entirely alone. They need help of others. No, we don't, Connor's quick to argue as the signs of civilization grow around them. It's not just trash now, but the mossy remnants of a knee-high stone wall and the rusty remains of an old electrical tower from the days when electricity was transmitted by wires. We don't need anyone. We'll take what we need. Risa sighs, trying to hold together a patience that's already worn through. I'm sure you're very good at stealing, but I don't think it's a good idea. Connor appears insulted by the insinuation. What do you think? People are just going to give us food and whatever else we need out of the goodness of their hearts? No, says Risa, but if we're clever about it, instead of rushing into this blind, we'll have a better chance. Her words, or maybe just her intentionally condescending tone, makes Connor storm off. Risa notices Lev watching the argument from a distance. If he's going to run, thinks Risa, now's the time for him to do it while Connor and I are busy fighting. And then it occurs to her this is an excellent opportunity to test Lev, to see if he's really standing by them now or just biding his time until he can escape. Don't you walk away from me, she growls at Connor, doing her best to keep the argument alive, all while keeping her eye on Lev to see if he bolts. I'm talking to you. Connor turns toward her. Who says I have to listen? Well, you would if you had half a brain, and obviously you don't. Connor moves closer until he's deep into her airspace, deeper than she likes anyone to get. If it wasn't for me, you'd be on your way to harvest camp, he says. Risa raises her hand to push him back, but his hand shoots up faster and grabs her wrist before she can shove him. This is the moment Risa realizes she's gone too far. What does she really know about this boy? He was going to be unwound. Maybe there's a reason, maybe a good reason. Risa's careful not to struggle because struggling gives him the advantage. She lets her tone of voice convey all the weight. Let go of me. Why? Exactly what do you think I'll do to you? This is the second time you've touched me without permission, Risa says. Still, he doesn't let go. Yet she does notice his grip isn't all that threatening. It isn't tight, it's loose. It isn't rough, it's gentle. She could easily pull out of it with a simple flick of her wrist, so why doesn't she? Risa knows he's doing this to make a point, but what the point is, Risa isn't sure. Is he warning her that he can hurt her if he wants to? Or maybe his message is in the gentle nature of his grip, a way of saying he's not the hurting type. Well, it doesn't matter, thinks Risa. Even a gentle violation is a violation. She looks at his knee. A well-placed kick could break his kneecap. I could take you out in a second, she threatens. If he's concerned, he doesn't show it. I know. Somehow, he also knows she wouldn't do it. Like the first time was just a reflex. If she were to hurt him a second time, though, it would be a conscious act. It would be by choice. Step off, she says. Her voice now lacks the force it had only moments before. This time he listens and lets go, moving back to a respectable distance. They both could have hurt one another, but neither of them did. Risa isn't quite sure what that means. All she knows is that she feels angry at him for such a mixture of reasons she can't sort them out. Then suddenly a voice calls to them from the right. This is very entertaining and all, but I don't think fighting's going to help much. It's Lev, and Risa realizes her little ruse has backfired. She set out to test him with a fake argument, but the argument turned real, and in the process she completely forgot about Lev. He could have taken off, and they wouldn't have known until he was long gone. Risa throws Connor an evil look for good measure, and the three of them continue on. It isn't until 10 minutes later, when Lev goes off to relieve himself in private, that Connor talks to Risa again. Good one, Connor says. It worked. What? Connor leans closer and whispers, the argument. You put it on to see if Lev would run while we weren't paying attention, right? Risa's bowled over. You knew that? Connor looks at her a bit amused. Well, yeah. If Risa felt uncertain about him before, it's even worse now. She has no idea what to think. So everything that happened back there was all a show? Now it's Connor's turn to be unsure. I guess, sort of. Wasn't it? Risa has to hold back a smile. Suddenly she's feeling strangely at ease with Connor. She marvels at how that could be. If their argument had been entirely real, she'd be on her guard against him. If it'd been entirely show, she'd be on her guard too, because if he could lie that convincingly, she'd never be able to trust him. But this was a mixture of both. It was real and it was pretend, and that combination made it all right. It made it safe, like performing death-defying acrobatic tricks above a safety net. She holds on to that unexpected feeling as the two of them catch up with Lev and move toward the frightening prospect of civilization.